In a theater, no one can hear you scream. Because you should shut the hell up and watch Alien Romulus. Let's get into my thoughts. Welcome to the Cinefanatics. My name is Robert Adams, and I'm here with a spoiler-free review for Alien Romulus. Before I get into this, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Follow all the things we're doing here. A lot of good, fun things, including I will be ranking all of the Alien movies, including Alien Romulus, including the AVPs. All of that is happening this weekend, so make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification so you know when that drops, and stay tuned. Anyways, once again, Fede Alvarez has us following a group of young adults going someplace and getting into things they shouldn't be messing with, whether it's a cabin in the Evil Dead films or a dilapidated house owned by a blind man who loves turkey basters. As for the actors in this, I think Cailee Spaeny and David Johnson are the standouts, easily by far the best performances out of this whole movie from them two, which makes sense. Those two really are just kind of front and center almost the entire movie from the beginning to the end, so that would make sense. Most all the other actors I'm not that familiar with, except Isabel Merced, who joined us earlier this year in the lovely Madam Web, but is also known for playing Dora in the live-action Dora the Explorer, and I think she did a good job as well. Most everyone else, the issue that I have with them is we didn't get to know their personalities very well, which is not something I'm used to seeing from Fede Alvarez or writer Rodo Saegas. Usually, like save with the Evil Dead movie and Don't Breathe, we got some character development from the main characters that we're following. I don't feel like we got that much from these characters. That being said, I also don't really know what most of their names were. Like, I know Cailee Spaeny's Rain, and then we've also got David Johnson as Andy, and that's roughly about it. I really didn't get like anyone else's name in this movie. Part of it, I don't know if it's necessarily like the theater I went to, the surround sound system, it was just kind of hard to hear potentially in some cases. A lot of them also had some really thick accents that's really hard to understand, especially if you combine it with a surround sound system. I was just having a hard time kind of understanding a little bit of what they were saying, especially in the calmer moments where that character development would be what we're getting in those moments. So that made it kind of difficult, but otherwise I think everyone did a pretty decent job. The music in this, though, that was phenomenal. I am beginning to become a Benjamin Wallfisch fan. Like, between the music that he did in this, also going back to 2020's The Invisible Man, and also Twisters that came out a couple of months ago, his music is doing very well, and yeah, I really like the mood and the atmosphere that it creates in this movie. Especially when you couple it with the design of the ship that they go to. They go to this, essentially it's like a space station, it's like half Romulus, half Remus, and the design is very, very similar to the design of the Nostromo back in the 1979 original Alien. Like, a lot of the hallways, you can see this in the trailer, the hallways look very similar. Like the lab, it looks a lot like the table that they sit at, that they eat at, that Kane has the chest burster in. Like, a lot of this is very well done as far as set design. Also, I like the little nods to the fact that the computer system looks exactly the same. Like, this is in the future. It definitely takes place in the future, and we are in 2024, which is the future when compared to 1979, yet they still designed the computers in this movie to emulate the computers that they thought were the future back in 1979, which I think is a really good touch, keeping in mind that this movie, I believe, is supposed to take place after the 1979 original Alien, but right before Aliens that came out in 1986. So I believe it's in between there. I can't remember if we actually got anything in the movie that hard cements it in that timeline. There may have been a year mentioned, and I'm not familiar with the years in the Alien movies off the top of my head, but all of that looked very well. I loved the touches that they did on that. That being said, while we're talking about what is done to emulate the other movies, I like what they did as far as incorporating the lore from almost all of the Alien movies. Going into this, I thought, again, thinking that this movie takes place between Alien and Aliens, you probably only need to watch those two. But if you are someone who is familiar with the entire Alien series, you will find little bits and pieces of stuff that's just spiced around the entire movie. And I really like what they did with that. With the exception of one line that is said, which sounds more like someone's trying to quote a movie rather than having like a spontaneous thing to say in that moment. That kind of takes you out of it, and I thought it was just super cheesy. But a lot of the other things that you see that are throwbacks and nods to other Alien movies, I think they worked very well. It was incorporated very well, so I very much appreciated all of that. Which, that being said, something that I think is funny about this is them doing stuff in this movie that we haven't seen in any of the Alien movies. And it's really weird. Some of the aspects of what they do and how they do it, I was taken by surprise. The whole time I'm sitting here thinking, like, we've seen a ton of movies that take place in, like, the Aliens world. Why haven't we seen this specific thing happen? And it was amazing finally get to seeing some of those things that were possible that we just never actually saw in a movie. Finally seeing them done in a movie, and I thought, I loved it. I loved the fact that they went there with some of those things. Some of these things being a first as far as like the gore department on it. So I really appreciated what they did with that. As far as the gore goes on it, I would say it's a little bit of a step up from Alien and Aliens. There's definitely some things in here that are a lot more squeamish if you are not a huge fan of gore. Probably wouldn't recommend this, but work your way up. Go through Alien, Aliens, Alien 3. If you're fine with those movies, you could possibly push it just a little bit further with this one, I would think. I do believe that this movie was a lot less gory than Alien Covenant. So, that being said, your mileage may vary as far as how you appreciate gore in movies, but I very much liked it. I wish I could have seen a little bit more in this. One of the other things I really liked that we technically haven't really seen it in another Alien movie, and that would be the characters knowing about the aliens and everything about the aliens before actually fighting them. So, for example, the first Alien movie, they didn't know anything until like the chest burster happened, and then we got that explanation from like Ash reading off of the computer as to what happened. Aliens, yes, the Marines were told what the aliens were, that they had acid for blood and whatnot. They kind of just didn't listen or pay attention or even care, as we see like when they're told to check their firearms, and some of them still decide to keep some bullets because they don't care the fact that they're in like a nuclear fusion reactor that could blow up. There's just a lot of it, they may hear it, but it's not registering and they don't act on that. Alien 3, kind of the same thing. The aliens and everything is explained to the prisoners, but they don't necessarily really care or do anything with that information. This is the first movie, I think, that we're presented with that information and the characters know how to use that information going into the story, and I love what that does for that movie. My only takeaways from this, there was like one CGI face that kind of looks like a filter for like a social media app or something. It didn't quite work. I appreciate what they were trying to do. I love what they were trying to do, but I don't think it really worked out very well. And it just kind of, every time it was shown, it just takes you out of it. And then the final thing about it was the ending. I think if you're going to hear anyone talk about anything negative from this movie, I'm willing to bet it's probably going to be the ending of this movie. Probably more on the last like 15-20 minutes of the movie, not even the entire third act. There's just something that happens towards the end of this movie that has like full-on Alien Resurrection vibes. And again, if you're a fan of the Alien series, Alien Resurrection's not necessarily the movie you want to be pulling references from or reminding people of, and it was just very off-putting what happens in there. So, I mean, I understand why they had to do that, because again, going back to giving us really good solid nods to the entire lore of the Alien series, it had to go in this direction, but it just looked really weird, and it just didn't work out for me story-wise. It's one of those that I think you probably could have dialed that back in and just gave us the nice clean ending, and probably would have appreciated it a lot more. But because of what the story was presenting, they needed to tack on this ending at the end. I'm curious as to what the thought process is about that. This would be something I would love to hear, like, say, Fede Alvarez doing a commentary when the movie comes out on Blu-ray. Any kind of behind-the-scenes type of situation. I would like to know, like, what were the thoughts going into that? How were they deciding how to do this? It's really hard to say without giving away any kind of spoilers, but yeah, that would probably be my major takeaway from this. So overall, I mean, it was a fun movie. It's a good movie to see in the theaters. I highly recommend, especially if you are a fan of the Alien series overall, go check this out in the theaters this weekend. It was a lot of fun up until that last little bit at the end, at least for me. You might have a better time with it, so who knows. But yeah, I do recommend checking out. If you're not a huge Alien fan, but you just want to see what the hype is about, maybe. If you have friends going to the theater, go join them. Otherwise, maybe wait for it to hit streaming at home, where you could turn off the lights, eat some popcorn, and then maybe not want to eat any more popcorn, because you probably don't want to eat anything while watching chest bursters and stuff in this movie. So you know what this movie's capable of bringing you. You can decide whether it's a good time to ingest food. Otherwise, that's going to be my review for this. What did you think of this movie? What is your favorite Aliens movie? Let me know down below in the comments. Again, I'll be ranking all of these Alien movies this weekend, so make sure you come back for that. Hit the subscribe button and hit that bell so you are notified when that video drops. You can follow us on social media. We are at The Cinefanatics on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can follow me personally at RCA Reacts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Letterboxd, and YouTube.com/@RCA Reacts. That's going to do it for this review. Thank you for watching this. We'll see you later.